All right. So all that to say, I am incredibly pleased and humbled and honored and all the wonderful things to get to introduce to you Miss Naja Hall, which, guys, I'm telling you, like, the internet's a wonderful place. A couple years ago, I was on an airplane and just thinking, all right, I'm about to jump into this step parenting journey with both feet into the deep end. And, I'm trying to do all the things that I can do by being girlfriend and being fiance, but not really sure how to make that transition into actually being a stepmom and what my boundaries are, what they should be. Am I violating them? I need all the support possible. So started just seeking out anything on the internet in terms of a room that we can chat in, a Facebook group, a blog. And I thought, what about a podcast as I'm traveling? And so I find this podcast called I Know I'm Crazy. And I did not hook my headphones up to my phone correctly. So I'm sitting in a packed airplane in the back, surrounded by strangers.
Not safe for work.
And her crazy intro music, which is like this shredding electric guitar and someone just yelling, I know I'm crazy, is like blasting in the plane. And I'm just sitting here. And yes, that is my introduction to Naja Hall.
No.
Yeah, beautiful. So I just got hooked on her content, the content she puts out in her podcast, through her social media, through her VIP Stepmom Club. If that's something that speaks to you, or if you know someone that speaks to, please follow up with her. And then when I started the podcast, I thought, I'm just going to ask this person that I admire greatly and I think is killing it and doing an amazing job if she would consider being on my show. And when she got back to me, not even 3 minutes later on Instagram, I started screaming and running around my house because I am absolutely a fangirl of this amazing human who I'm so proud to say has become a friend. So that's the personal side of the bio for Naja. The professional side of the bio for Naja is, again, she hosts the popular podcast, I Know I'm Crazy. She is the founder of VIP Stepmom and Blended and Black. She is a master step family and family coach and just an all-around amazing human. So Miss Naja is here to talk to us today about complicated family relationships. This could apply to a blended family, or if you are not in a blended family, stick around. There's going to be nuggets of wisdom and knowledge around that as well. So without further ado, Naja Hall, everyone.
Hello, everybody. My name is Naja Hall. Thank you so much, Bree, for that amazing intro. You should have known that nothing Naja does is safe for work. You should have just known, I pride myself on keeping it all the way real, because who has time to go through layers of filth in order to get to the message? So I hope you guys, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the recording, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that I can bring you some sort of value today. Bree, once again, girlfriend, become a homegirl. I love you to life. Again, thank you so much for having me. And we are talking about complicated family relationships today. I do have a whole bunch of cutesy slides prepared, but I decided not to share them because I kind of just wanted to talk to you. However, I'll be sending the entire presentation over to Bree. And should you want it? Because who wants to, I'm not going to sit here and read you a million slides. If you want it, I will be absolutely happy. Bree will be happy to send it over to you. So one of the first things when we think about a complicated family relationship is we think about what makes up the family, what makes up the family construct. And it's us. It's a family is, in my opinion, and I teach and wholly believe in the systemic view of looking at a family. We are a system. The family is the most important system that exists in our universe. Long before you enter the penal system, the government system, the workforce, the school system, the first system that you're a part of is your own family. You are a group of interconnected individuals whose actions and behaviors directly affect one another. And sometimes they can get nasty and complicated and ugly. And how do you disconnect if you yourself find yourself in this complicated thing, in this complicated web? Well, it's nearly impossible, right? Because as humans, we all feel the need to be connected to someone or something. We all have to first be a part of a group. And so when you are a part of a complicated dynamic, I first want you to ask yourself, what makes it complicated? Who makes it complicated? More than likely, it's the people that raised you, because these people taught you how to give love. They taught you what it means to receive love. They taught you how you are perceived to the world. They taught you how to resolve conflict. All of these things that make us human come from this group that we're a part of. My hands are kind of getting on my nerves. I'm looking at, so I'm going to make my hands stay still. So all of these people have taught you how to be human. And I guarantee you that some of the things that you don't like about yourself are the very things that you also don't like about these people in your group. And so first, identifying the people and the tactics and the skill set and the behaviors that you don't like about your particular group and certain people in your group is the first thing that you're going to have to do in order to start to set that apart and start to recognize it. Like, for example, as I mentioned earlier, your family is the first set of people. And family, the people that raise you, doesn't have to be biological. It could be step, foster, adopted, whatever, in your neighborhood, whatever. I call that a group that you're part of, your family. Let's just say that you observed the two humans, maybe it was mom, dad, grandma, whomever raised you, the people that raised you. I'm going to call them mom and dad to keep things simple. You saw them resolving conflict by arguing and fighting. Dad was belligerent. Mom played the victim. She manipulated dad. Dad became violent and incensed. Mom then blocked him out and cut off communication. You were watching all this stuff as a kid. Even if you were super young, it was still being downloaded into your psyche. And so when you need it, and you're going to need it when it comes to you resolving conflict in your adulthood, you're going to automatically pull from these things that were implanted or downloaded in your memory bank from when you were younger, and you're going to use it. And so you start to become that thing that traumatized you. You not only start to become it, you start to pass it on to other people. And you start to notice that some of your own relationships are affected by this. What do you do? What do you do when your family does not want to change, when there is this complicated dynamic? Well, the first thing is you've noticed that there's an issue. So you yourself are responsible for yourself. If you do not like and you recognize that your relationships are being affected by how you handle conflict or how you perceive the world or your inability to take criticism. If you recognize that you have a pattern of broken relationships or problematic situations, and you're starting to recognize that you are the problem, then you've already won. You have already won. You have literally already started to come to grips with, there's something about me that needs to change. How do you do that? You go get help. You go talk to somebody. You find yourself a coach. You find yourself a mentor. If you have good health insurance, because I'm in America, that's a problem for a lot of people in this country, you go see a therapist. If you can afford to pay for it, you go and find the person that you can most identify with and that has proven that they can help you to solve your issue. Self-awareness is a lot of it. Now, that's the fun part, is fixing us, right? Fixing me and you. Everybody that's here, we all know that we need help. We know that we're not perfect. We all know that we're crazy, which is why I call my podcast, I Know I'm Crazy. But what about the other people in the world that don't recognize? Can I cuss, Bree? Or are we like, we Christian and we holy people on here? Like, what are we?
I think we're like respectful cussers, maybe. Is that a thing?
If your ass knows that you are crazy and you come from a family of crazies, but these people have not recognized their own pathology of being unable to handle criticism, resolving conflict in very nasty ways, unable to take responsibility. If you're recognizing these patterns in the people that are your group, are your family system, I need you to accept that there's nothing that you can do to change these people. No, nothing. The best way, and this is not what you probably want to hear right now, but I'm not a magician. And I'm always, as I said in the beginning, I promise I'm going to keep it real with you. If you are wasting your time on an effort to change the people in your system, and they are reluctant to do that. If they're pushing back against the change, the only thing that you can do is be the example. And maybe, just maybe, they'll see some of the steps that you're taking in your own life. They'll see some of the leaps and bounds that you've made and how your life is improving, and they might be inspired. Otherwise, it's not your responsibility to change anyone. Now, a lot of the work that I do is for people that are in blended families. Who all here is in a blended family? Even if you're watching the replay, you're probably watching this because you saw my name and you're like, that's the Naja, the blended family girl. Blended families are even more complicated because you have a group, you have your household, but then you have a group of people that you didn't grow up with. So you don't even have that level of compassion for these people because automatically there's like a cats and dogs thing. Like Bree mentioned when she was introducing me, she was like, I'm getting ready. I'm a fiance. I'm a girlfriend. I'm about to become a fiance. And what am I supposed to do? And I would tell any person that is about to marry into a ready-made family. A ready-made family is an old country term that my grandma, one time when I told her I was about to, I met this guy, he has 3 kids. She was like, ooh, honey, that's a ready-made family. And I was so offended. I just was like, God rest her soul. Today would have been her 90th birthday. I was so offended by that because I was like, girl, ready-made. Like, it sounded like something that I was not ready to accept. But at the time I was offended because it was true. And I had to admit that this man who I'd fallen in love with already had a set up situation before me. And who wants to think about the person that they love having a whole life with someone else? And then this person that they had this life with has not accepted you. They seem like they're intentionally trying to make your life a living hell. They tell their kids bad things about you. They're being awful to your partner. Like who wants to admit that this person, your person had this whole thing with them? So that was very difficult for me. So I'm going to use that term. So if you felt that when I said that, if it did something to you, then if you can't say amen, say ouch, because, boom, there we go. And so when she said that, when grandma said, yeah, this man's in a ready-made family, it really led me to have all these visions of things that I didn't want to think about. Like my partner looking at a blushing bride coming down the aisle before I was that person. Clearly, they were not a supermodel walking down like Miss Naja was, but you got to start somewhere. Or thinking about my partner having children with somebody and they're taking their first look at their baby and crying. It's like, oh, I have abs, so there's that. And so, you look at this thing and you're like, it hurts because all of these things that we tell ourselves in order to dehumanize the other household, a lot of us have to do it. We want to start thinking, oh, the person's ugly or they're nasty or they're full of trauma or they're not as good as me. Because when we start to see them as human, it becomes very, very real. And you have to admit some of these very harsh truths to yourself. Like my partner was with someone before me and they did all this stuff before. And I feel hurt and I feel jealous and I don't like it. Self-awareness takes a long time for some people. That's why others, those people that want to stay in this complicated thing with you, that's why they continue to dehumanize you. This is why they have to tell themselves certain things about you. It's like they've convinced themselves that their life looks one way. And by admitting that you are very real, you are very present, you are human, you have feelings. And while your life might not look like what they thought it should look like, while their ex-partner is with someone else and has moved on, that person is you. If they admit that, then they would be admitting a lot of their own harsh truths. That would mean that I failed at something. That would mean that technically me and my kids are statistics now. That would mean I can't check a box. That would mean I no longer have the cloak of marriage. That means I have literally lost something. And for a lot of people, that reality is too cold and bleak. And so they'd rather stay in la la land. And so la la land means reminding themselves, this is their reality. Remember that you don't have feelings, that you're not real, that you don't matter, that you're not as important, that they don't have to respect you, even look at you or acknowledge you. And that's the part that hurts. And so accepting that fact about people that treat you this way, and this is not only for family, this is for anybody, people on your job, people in the community, people that don't like you because of the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, your religious beliefs, your weight, your height, What's the other dumb ass reasons that people try to group us and hate us? There's so many. There's too many for me to name. But you have to remind yourself about this fact pertaining to these particular people. They cannot exist in a world where they have to see you as just like them, because then they have to face some of their own stuff. That's a part about existing with complicated relationships and complicated personalities that I want you to understand. I'm not saying that I want you to have sympathy for them. I want you to I want you to be apathetic. I want you to be indifferent. I want you to be indifferent, because sympathy and empathy, that means, oh my God, I feel so bad for this person. And then that's how we become accustomed to that cycle of abuse, right? When we start to be like, well, they were traumatized as a kid and they saw their parents beating up on each other. And so I'm just going to let them beat up on me. No. I want you to not allow that. No, I need you to not allow that. Empathy sometimes will get you in trouble. And I know I'm not the person that's ever going to teach you guys turn the other cheek, because they're going to smack you in that one too. Ms. Naja doesn't teach that. I teach you to be apathetic. I teach you to set personal boundaries, firm boundaries. And you know who tries their darndest to break those boundaries? Is the people that we grew up with, the people that raised us. Parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, because they saw you from a certain place. They saw you when you were starting out. And how dare you try to set a boundary against me? I raised you. I changed your diaper. I took care of you. I was talking to my dad, who raised me, by the way. Him and my mom still married. I think they still have sex. Talking to him the other day, and I was like, Daddy, remember you were late taking me to school. And he was like, yeah, I took you to school every day and I made your lunch. I was like, you literally had to. If you didn't, you would have gone to jail. Like, you had to. And so don't allow people that should just be giving you, and I'm not using my parents as an example. Like, I have really, thank God, I have good parents. I consider that a privilege. I know now it's a privilege, because doing this job, I see not everybody is a good parent. Everybody has a good parent. But don't allow the people that were literally doing what they were supposed to do to make you feel guilty. You were supposed to feed me and change my diaper. If I could have done it myself, I probably would have, Boundaries is what we're going to talk about next. And I'm going to wrap up here, because I'm an interactive type of person, and talking to myself feels weird right now. So I hope that you all are thinking of questions to ask me, because I'm going to wrap up here with this last point. Boundaries. Boundaries are something that seem like slime. And I'm probably aging myself here, but when I was a kid, there's this movie called Ghostbusters. It's the first or second one. I was a kid when that was out. So yes, I'm 25 still. And so there was this thing like Slimer. He was a ghost and he used to spit out green slime, and you could see through it. I'm going to use slime as my comparison to what a boundary is not. Because slime is icky. You don't really want to touch it, but you can see straight through it. It's not protecting you from anything. It's not protecting you from being attacked by outside sources. It's literally like a thing that looks kind of nasty. And some of us treat our boundaries like slime. Like, we put a wall of slime around ourselves, but the people that aren't supposed to be able to have a look into our lives, they can see it. They can still kind of see it. When you set a firm boundary, it's like building a wall, a real wall, not one that was promised a long time ago and never happened. It's like building a wall around yourself and protecting yourself and the things and the people that you love and your beliefs from those that do not share your intentions, that don't have good intentions towards you. Your boundaries are just as important for keeping people out, but also keeping certain things in. You have to set boundaries for yourself. And this is you being very intentional. And boundaries hurt. They hurt you and the people that raise you, especially the ones that you have these complicated relationships with, whether it be a parent. Maybe it could be your own child sometimes. Maybe someone has had to set boundaries with you. We all know how that feels. I've experienced that before. Maybe you're the toxic one, and sometimes we all have been, all of us on here. Maybe it's from your partner's ex that they share a child with. I talk a lot about that, by the way. And so when you set these boundaries, what that looks like is literally not allowing a person access to you, not just physical access. Because you can't, once I set a boundary, you ain't going to call me. You're not going to find me unless you watch TV or listen to my top 10 podcast. You're not going to be able to get to me because I have made it so. I've spiritually prayed and asked my personal higher power, whom I call God. Shout out to those of you that call him, her, or they something else. I literally pray and connect to my higher power and ask, I need this person, this thing, I need this away from me because it no longer serves me. And so whatever method you decide to employ, I want you to understand that boundaries are so important. And yes, the people that want to break your boundaries are the ones that are going to make you feel guilty. Your mom, let's just say you decided to stop paying your mom's rent because you want to buy a house. Your mom never really worked and she spent all dad's child support when she was supposed to be taking care of you. You really didn't get to use that money that dad sent for college because mom spent it. You paid for your own school and you worked. But our parents have a true way of making us feel guilty. That's why I'm using parents as an example here. And then when you say, Mom, listen, I've been working, I've been saving money. I really want to buy a house now. I got to stop paying your rent. Oh my God. Guilt trip city. So what do? You first admit that my mother might have some toxic traits. My mother, this person that was entrusted to take care of me and groom me to be a successful member of society, is using me. My mother is human. My mom is human. And so, and I'm saying this like this is easy because it's not easy to tell your parent, well, I can't pay your rent. Because the first thing they're going to say is, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. Can I come live with you? Oh, well, I'm going to be on the street. And you're going to feel bad. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're not going to be able to eat. If this parent is super toxic, they're going to start calling your siblings and aunts and uncles and rallying the troops. This is what happens when you have these toxic people in your life that don't respect your boundaries. Now they have to turn everybody else against you. And so you are going to have to be okay with being the bad guy. Because I guarantee you, it's pretty exhausting trying to clear your name to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I don't recommend that you do it. I surely don't. And so boundaries are so important. If you have if you're co-parenting with a toxic ex, I'm sorry, I said the word co-parenting. What I really meant is counter-parent, because a lot of us have counter-parents. Co means you're trying to work with me. We are doing this thing together. We are trying to raise a future president or the future person that's going to cure cancer. When you have a counter-parent, this person is strictly dead set on just kind of hurting you, or they don't want to work with you. And you need to be able to admit it to yourself. If you have a partner that's kind of stuck on stupid and doesn't see that they're counter-parent, because I'm not calling them a co anything. If they're stuck on stupid, then their ego won't allow them to see this person doesn't want to work with them because they're not as great as they think they are, or this person no longer sees them as great, or this person needs to dehumanize them to the point to where they refuse to see them as great. They're committed to misunderstanding them. Then that's what you're going to have to do. That's the case. Then you have to be able to not only set boundaries, sometimes you're going to have to convince other people that are so accustomed to this dysfunction. They know how to exist in dysfunction. Non-toxic people know how to exist in dysfunction too. That's why we take bull crap for so long. That's why we get used to it. That's why we try to convince ourselves that it's not as bad as it really is. I guarantee you there's not one person in your life. If they start treating you bad, you don't need them. I promise you, that's not the way the world works. When you put out good and you are a good person, you will attract those people and those relationships and those things, that money, whatever it is that you need, you feel like you need to attract. You are holding on to something that is dead. You're not going to attract it that way. And so I hope that you found some value in what I said today. I hope that you focus on understanding the basis of these complicated relationships in your life. And most importantly, I just hope that you realize that you don't have to take it. There's nowhere in the rule book where you have to accept abuse. You don't have to accept having relationships with people that are committed to seeing you as bad. You can cut them off. You don't have to. I'm Naja Hall, and the floor is open for questions, comments, whatever.
All right. I'm going to start us off. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So, I'm like always preaching this empathy and obviously we're here talking about connection, right?
Yeah.
So hearing this message of what you're saying has saved me multiple times in multiple areas of my life. And so I know that it's true and I know that it's valuable, but it's hard because it fights that part of my spirit that always wants to look for that bridge to connect, that always wants to look for that opportunity for empathy. So can you talk about that, just kind of almost being like a cognitive dissonance if you want to stay focused on this path of empathy, but while sometimes that's not always the healthiest option, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. When I said one of the most important things to do is, once you realize there's some complicated relationships around you, really look into these people. Some people are not capable of showing you the same type of empathy and compassion that you show them. They are not as committed to that. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of us that call ourselves empaths. And I firmly believe that we were just most of us aren't empaths, by the way. Everybody, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok has everybody thinking they're an empath. Honey, you are just overly sensitive and you were raised by people that didn't allow you to have a voice. And they made you think that their voices were far more important than your own. You're not an empath. You're traumatized. And so I'm close to my mom, but my mom's like loud. And listen, I know. You're like, Naja, you're loud too. But just imagine loud, like me calling somebody loud, right? My mom is like a hot air balloon, child. And so because I was an observant child and I have recognized that I was not allowed to express my own needs a lot because my mom was so loud. She attracted so much attention that I was really aware. I had to be super aware of, we're at the grocery store. Mom is like, waving at this person. Like, are people talking about my mom? I was one of those kids, like in my head. And so not saying that she's a person that I don't show empathy to, but I had to realize, why are you like this, Naja? Like, why are you in your head? Why do you always think you have to observe what other people do instead of expressing your own needs? And so one of the first things I'll tell you, if there's people like that in your life, Bree, like you were saying, I'm teaching empathy. There are some people that are genuinely, they don't define empathy the same way as you. Ask them. I bet they're going to say some boo, beep. I'm going to beat myself out that time. They're going to say some crap. Same thing with friendships and relationships. I think a lot of us would save a lot of time if we ask people to define it. Define what friendship means to you. To me, friendship means, if I call you, you're going to call me back the same day. Nobody's that damn busy. Or you're going to ask me if I'm hurting. To some people, they think being a friend means we'll talk once a month. So we have different definitions. And so I think just having a person to see, do you define it the same way as me? That'll save a lot of us. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Any other questions, you guys? If your audio is not working or you're a place where you can't turn your audio or video on, you could use the chat also.
Okay, let me go over and look at the chat. Okay. And Bree, I'll say the podcast, when you asked me to come on your podcast, it was because normally it's just me talking and teaching and talking at people and coaching people or making YouTube videos where I'm talking to myself. And so it was one of the most enlightening conversations that I'd had in so long. As a matter of fact, you allowed me to repost that podcast on my own because I was like, so you brought a lot of stuff out of me that I just had not had a chance to say. So you have a very unique ability with me. That's why you and that's probably why we became friends. We define friendship the same way. And we bring certain really good things and good feelings out of one another. And the people that you're showing empathy to, if they're not doing that, if you leave the conversation or the interaction feeling drained, these are not people that you are required to give your empathy to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And, that conversation is special to me too, because again, one, I so appreciated you responding, but also, that was a time when we were relocated in Detroit. My father-in-law was passing. It was the beginning of all of this going on. And so for you to show empathy in that moment, and to really kind of be part of that support system, it meant a lot. So I love this definition of just how you define it, and what that means to someone else might not be what that means to you. And having that conversation can be really important.
Yeah.
It looks like Ashley's got his hand raised.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi there. I'm off mute now. Yes, let me just put this hand down. Lower hand. There we go. So I was actually presenting just before you, Naja. And I put one nugget of something into my story that I said was a whole other story. So the sentence that I said, and then we'll kind of dig into it from there. And just so you know as well, my mum is on this call too. So she's in here as Rona's iPad. So she's down there.
Hey,
too.
Mom.
So she might say something as well. So
our cousin, Mom.
Oh, don't worry. So my mum and my dad had me when I was younger, obviously. Duh, that's how it works. But the point I'm trying to make is when I was young, they divorced and they both remarried. And that was kind of my whole life. I had 2 families, 2 siblings. And overall, that scenario worked really quite well. Between my mum and my stepmom, there were 2 absolute queens and took great care of all 8 children between the 2 families. It was the men that kind of caused some issues. So I've got a question for you based off of that. So the sentence that I said in my last podcast was talking about a vacation that we went on to Florida. And I spent 2 weeks here with me, my siblings and my mum, my stepdad, and my stepdad's mistress. It was an interesting vacation, that's for sure.
Okay, wow.
So anyway, so the point I'm making is I have some siblings on my mum and my stepdad's side of the family. And when that relationship broke down, my stepdad definitely turned into what you've been calling a counter-parent. Big time. And despite all of my mum's best efforts, there's lots of trauma that's been left with my younger siblings, just kind of based off of the way that he would try and play one person against another the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so now my youngest sibling is, Mum, how old is Sophie? 21?
20.
She's now 20, and I think she's the one that was most impacted by this. As a young adult, and she's going to probably try and watch the recording of this in the future. So speaking to her as someone that's got some leftover trauma, that's trying to work through that ugly relationship where she was kind of played as a pawn between, 2 parents.
Between mom and your stepdad.
My stepdad. Okay. So, despite all of my mum's best efforts, he was just always kind of jumping in with manipulations and kind of using the children as weapons against my mum. Do you have any input or words of advice for my sister who's trying to shed some of that and find herself and overcome that trauma?
So Sophie is stepdad and Mama Rona's child. Okay.
Yes. So my half sister.
Hey, Sophie. Hey, girl. My name is Naja Hall. I am a blended family coach. I help people through marriage, divorce, remarriage, recoupling. I also talk to a lot of individuals, a whole bunch of adult people and kids. One thing that I have seen, the reason I started doing this work is because my husband went through a very nasty divorce. And it was to the point to where one of the parents, not the one I married, was seemingly dead set on hurting the relationship with that other parent. They would say things, they would make phone calls, cops had to get involved. It was nasty. But I started to see what was happening to the kids. And there was one kid in particular, the oldest one, that was being used as a pawn to literally try to obliterate my partner. Mm-hmm. Things were said that when you could see, like you could watch a grown man come to his knees. that you never thought would have happened. I observed this, and I'm an artist by nature. I believe in recreation is one of the ways that I connect with people. And so I built a community to kind of help the kids, like the kids caught in the middle of this stupid adult shit. I want to help the children that were the victims, yes, victims of their parents. And so people like you that have had to see and endure the brokenness of the two adults that were charged with raising them, sending them off into the world to be successful. You know, I wanted to start to help these people to heal some of that, because number one, you didn't deserve it. Number two, you probably didn't understand why it was happening to you. And number three, your parents, people like to give parents credit and say, oh my God, they were doing the best they could. If dad was doing all these things, and I don't know if you see it like that or not. I don't know if you see it as dad was being the bad guy, or maybe I don't know if you blame mother either. Maybe you and I could talk. But I know part of you sees it as this is an issue that both of your parents had. You probably felt like mom should have protected you and dad could have been better. I don't know who you blame. I don't know the details of the situation. But one thing I need you to understand as adults, you're an adult now, you're coming into adulthood, Sophie. One thing I need you to understand is that it wasn't your fault. And it's so cliche. Oh, I know it's not my fault. No. It was not your fault. When dad was being abusive, yes, verbal abuse, financial abuse, that is abuse. That's trauma. That's toxic. When dad was doing these things to your family, to your mother, you were probably, was she a teenager at the time, Ashley? Probably.
Yes.
No.
How old was she?
The split was 6, but then he continued for quite a few years until probably recently to affect. This is what I mean. It and now she does understand, and now she is having therapy because they said she's got complex PTSD through it.
Absolutely, she does. Yeah. And at a certain point, I like the fact that you all gave it a name so that she can know how to identify some of the issues that she's probably having. And she's probably noticing it, as I spoke about earlier, recurring in her own relationships. Some of her friendships, romantic relationships, maybe, familial relationships. She's like, oh my God. So Sophie, you've already won because you recognize that something is not quite balanced. I'm not going to say right, because then right begets wrong. I'm going to say something's a little off balance, but the thing about that is you have the power to tip the scales. You know your dad's trauma. You know why he said, you may not know why he said some of the things that he said, but if that's dad, you probably know a little bit about traumas, and you maybe asked your mom, why is he like this? Has she ever asked you that, Rona? Why is he like this?
No, she hasn't really. No.
Okay, so let's talk about it then. If she's going to watch this, you were married to this person. Why? What happened to him in his childhood that made him think it was okay to brutalize?
Oh, yeah. No, probably. Now I've thought about it. His own father, who he didn't have anything to do with at all, was very, very abusive to his mother. And also, I think in his father's side, there was, from what my understanding was, they were just a very, very angry family on his father's side. So he always stood by his mother, and from quite an early age, I think would not have anything to do with his father. So maybe that was where the issues came from, and I've never really thought about it, really.
You know, that's not a maybe, that's a definite. Because remember earlier I was saying we learned how to resolve conflict by the people that were teaching us.
Of course.
That taught him that. And I don't know if your ex-husband, he really wants to be this way, but he probably does not understand that you don't have to be this way. And there's another way for you to be. But for many of us, as we downloaded all this information, ages 0 to 7, 0 to 8-ish, you're just downloading. You're not outputting anything. You're just downloading. It becomes a part of your psyche, almost like this emotional DNA that we're dealing with. And so it comes out. unless we retrain ourselves. And this is Sophie, this is what you're going to have to do, girlfriend, because I had to do it too. A lot of people on this line have had to do that. That's why we do psychotherapy. That's why we have coaches. That's why we listen to podcasts. You know, we have to literally retrain ourselves to force different habits. When I want to stop cussing, I'm going to train myself to do it. I know I can, not ready for it, you know, but you're going to have to train yourself to do things differently.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Rona, and I don't know if you're ever going to go to a session with her, Ashley. I don't know. Have you been to a session with her, or have you been invited at this point?
I'm on opposite sides of the Atlantic. So I live in the US. My family's all in the UK.
Okay. Well, we have Zoom, you know, because I wonder how important it would be for you, Sophie, or Mom, Sophie, and all of you guys to just sit and say, these were her experiences, because it's so validating. If this young girl, she looks like a woman, you know, she's 20, about to be 21. But you all know, we were 20, we were still kids. We didn't know. And we thought we knew everything. We knew nothing. We're still processing. So she's coming into womanhood. Just imagine how validating it would be for her. And you know she's struggling, to just acknowledge what she experienced. Not allow herself to call herself a victim, because that begets victimization and that mentality of victimhood. But Mama Rona, just to let her know, like, listen, this is why I think your dad was like this. This is why he did this to you. I'm not making an excuse, but I'm just giving you some building blocks so that you can insert them into your own healing. Of course. I hope that helped a little bit, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Naja. We actually have another question in the chat too, from Manal. Oh my gosh, Manal, I know that I'm probably saying your name wrong, and I've known you for years, so please.
Manal Abdel Khalek. Did I say it right? I think. Manal.
I don't know if she could unmute or not, but do you see her question there?
Yes.
It says, do you have any tips for building stronger relationships with family in general?
Yeah, heck yeah, I do. So Manal, and I just really hope I'm not butchering your name.
That's okay. It's Manal. And
Manal.
Thank you, Bree. Yes, thank you, Naja. I'm sorry, my internet's kind of in and out.
It's okay, Manal. No, I pride myself on saying people's names right, because I'm
Thank
sure
you.
I've been called Naja. So Manal. So Manal, heck yeah, I got advice for that. You said, do you have any tips for building stronger relationships with family in general? Yes. First of all, once again, definitions are so important. How do these people that are called your family, how do they define that? I first would advise having strong relationships with people that define family the same way you do. And then once you're seeing that these people define family the same way you do, those are the ones that you work at. Now, the ones that because we all have some people, and I had a recently very hard time. I mentioned at the top where we lost both my grandmas within a 4-month span not too long ago. And one side of the family bonded together. We worked together. We supported one another. We grieved together. And the other side of the family, it is war. Like literal, it's a crap storm right now. And so in that, I had to really go and reassess some of these relationships. Our relationships, and I started to learn like a lot of these relationships were not based on respect, love, and boundaries. They were literally based on the fact that we have a little bit of the same DNA. We got a little bit of the same blood. And so I started to change my definition. And I have a podcast about this. I spoke to a psychiatrist. I interviewed her on my podcast. And one of her things, and it gave me a lot of freedom. So I'm going to share this with you now. She said, you can take away definition of calling people family. Just because you share blood, you don't have to call them family. You can call them relatives. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, that just means people that you're related to. And that was so freeing for me, because I think when we say family, that title, like that word, that begets obligation, doesn't it? You're like, oh, that's my family. You feel like, oh, damn, I won the lotto. Now I got to give them some money. Oh, I have an extra piece of cornbread I got to share with them. You feel obligated. But when you take that title away, and you have to, I'm all about forming habits, being consistent in forming habits. And there's some cousins that I no longer call cousins on my father's side. I say, well, that's my relative. And it has a total, the weight, I feel the weight lifted off. And so I want you to just first be able to be real with yourself now and say, are these people relatives? And I'm just still letting them have this front and center stage in my life when they should really be in the background now because I'm doing so out of obligation. So first, I want you to define it. And then how do you have stronger relationships with people? I'm a fan of calling people. Bree knows if I have anybody's phone number here, if I'm walking down the street, I'll be like, oh, I wonder what so-and-so is doing. I will call you. Not going to text and ask, are you busy? I'm going to call and you'll get back with me when you can. If you're available, we'll have an insightful, beautiful, loving conversation. And I'm going to say, I love you at the end because I don't know I don't know how, when my number's up, I don't know when yours is going to be up. I'm a firm believer in overwhelming people with love, overwhelming it. I say, I love you to strangers if they've made me feel good, because if you've made me feel good, you've taught me something to love about myself. And why would I not love you for that? So Manal, one of the first things you do is let them know that you want that connection. Tell them, hey, all of my friends, I just told them we're going to be friends. I think I probably did you like that, Bree. Hey girl, we just had this 1 hour conversation, but me and you are going to be friends. You can take people as your friends. You can make them your conquests. Me and Ashley, we're probably going to be friends. Boom. Everybody I said it in front of people.
I feel it.
Okay. So see, like I'm very intentional. Manal, me and you, like, it's like anybody I want you to be able to know and have the strength to let people know what you want and you expect from them. So many of us are scared to do it because we think we're going to get turned away. Rejection is a monster. That fear of rejection is a monster. But you don't, like, what if you don't ask? What if you don't? Closed mouths don't get fed. And so you let this family member know now, hey, I know we weren't, I said it to one of my aunties not too long ago. I know we weren't as close when I was a kid, but I really value you and I love some of the stuff that you've done in your life. And I just want to be closer. And then you have to, the key word in relationships is you got to start to relate. You got to call them. You got to go by and see them. You don't just send a Christmas card once every year because Christmas comes once a year. I called my grandmothers every Sunday for the last 20 years until the Sundays that they passed away. And I was able to be there with both of them, who ironically died on Sundays. Never thought about that. And so you have to be intentional about building relationships with people. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Manal.
Beautiful, Naja. As always, we have time for maybe one more question. I know a couple people are coming in because we're going to do our closing for the whole day in this room as well. So if you just joined us, we are just finishing up our workshop with Naja Hall, who is a family and life coach and answering some questions about complicated family structures or family relationships. So even if you just joined, if you have a question you'd like to toss by her, this is a good time to do that. And if you don't feel comfortable unmuting or turning your video on, you can toss that in the chat as well. We've been doing both of those, but was really cool to see some family stuff get worked out with multiple family members in this group. So thank you guys for being open and vulnerable with that. Because again, everything that we share here is going to benefit folks afterwards as well. So
it was amazing that you guys shared that, Ashley. Wow, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know your family's going to be okay. I know, with people like you and Mama Rona, I know y'all going to be fine. You're going to be just fine.
Love that. All right. Well, if there are no other questions for right now, we will go ahead and bring a close. So I just want to thank you so much, Naja, for your time, for your energy, your insight, your message to just be unbothered, as simple as that is, has saved
my motto.
More times than not. I think I've even reminded myself that just 10 times this week alone, that how much easier life can be if we just choose and make the intentional choice to be, I'm just going to be unbothered by that. Like I have that control. We can't control these external things, the bees buzzing around, the flies buzzing around, as you mentioned in your book and in your podcast. We can't control that. We can't stop that from happening, but we can make that conscious choice just to be unbothered by it. So thank you personally for that. I'm sure, I'm looking at my husband, I'm pretty sure he's thankful for that as well. He comes out, he's like, oh, good, Naja. We love when we get Naja advice in this house. Big hit. So thank you so much. Do you just take another moment here to let people know how they can follow up with you, follow you on social media?
Yeah, so I have I talk a whole bunch of stuff, y'all, on a whole bunch of pages, but my fun page is missnaja.com, MISS. And I started it when I was super younger. I know I'm a Mrs. now, but so it's Miss Naja, and you just got to spell it out. I put it over there in the chat as well. My website is najahall.com. If you want to check out my books, my podcasts, any of my services, I talk a lot of stuff on the internet, a lot. So I have, video series. I have a plethora of information out there for people that just want to get to know me on a personal or professional level, because, I'm an open book. So just visit najahall.com or slide in my DMs at missnaja.com.
I did. And like I said, you respond, as I've said about so many of the speakers that we've had this weekend. You are a great example of what we're trying to embody, that connection. It's not just content you put out there into the universe and not worried about where it lands or who it affects. Yeah. You want to know, you want to follow with people. And, you are the person, I'll tell the story. You're one of the first people I shared with that I was pregnant, because of so much of what the content you talked about bringing families together. And you were like, this is not a conversation we have on Instagram DMs. I'm calling you. What's your cell phone number? and you took the time in between appointments to talk through all of this and how I was feeling. And it means so much to know that you are that type of person. So I appreciate you. Thank you for all the content you put out into the world, all the support you give others. Please, guys, she means it. Follow up with her, connect with her. She's going to seriously ask you, Ashley and Rona and Manel, what your situation is in a couple weeks. She's going to follow up, be prepared for that. Yes. And is part of the family now. So appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
And for everybody else who is coming in right now, I think Travis's workshop is just wrapping up. I know Ryan's just wrapped up and you guys are coming in. Let's just take about 2-3 minutes, guys. And then I'm just going to check back in. If you guys weren't here for the beginning, when we talked about filling out that worksheet, filling up some goals for the weekend, I'm going to pull that up so you guys can look at that and just check back in. If the goals you set this morning, if you were able to work towards any of those in the workshops you chose today, and then also looking intentionally, again, as Ms. Naja said, at tomorrow and what there's some things that you want to be a part of, what speakers do you want to learn from to work towards those goals. So I'm just going to pull up that worksheet. If it's the first time you're seeing it, take a second to jot it down and maybe make any notes of something that you have learned today. And of course, I got signed out of my Google, so let me go ahead and sign back into that. And then we will bring it to a close in about 2 minutes here. But again, Naja, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was great talking to you, Bree, Manel, Mama Rona, Ashley, and everyone else that didn't get a chance to speak. I know how it is. You can just holler at me if you didn't feel like talking today, because I totally understand.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for listening to me and letting me rant. Thank you.
We've all been there. We all appreciate a good rant. We can all connect on that level for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Awesome, guys. All right.